Hey everybody, Joe Morrison, 49SAF Pod, coming to you from Juneau, Alaska, and the day after the Innovation Summit. A reminder to everybody in Alaska's entrepreneurial and investment community, April 23rd will be the day of the finals in Juneau for Alaska Angel Conference. So more information online at akangelconference.com. Things are moving forward as we speak. Processes are underway as we work to see who is going to get the opportunity to receive a $50,000 to $200,000 investment from our local angels. All depends on the deal, depends on the companies, depends on the investors. It's the real stuff. We're talking with Marc Wheeler of Juneau's Coppa, a local ice cream plus lunch plus coffee shop focused on delivering Alaska flavors to the public, and Keith MacIntyre of Big Bear Software in Canada, specifically from a town called Penticton in the Okanagan Valley. And fun fact, the Okanagan Valley has a $1.67 billion tech industry. So we want to understand that a little bit. We want to understand how that evolved, how that came to be. So we talked to Keith about that. And we talked to Marc a little bit about how did Juneau become this tourist destination and this travel mecca, as well as starting to get renowned for its food. And that's part of what he's involved in. There's common threads in both of these stories, so we have a really great mashup for you. The audio on this is beautiful. I want to say thanks to KTOO for letting us use their studio. Totally gorgeous audio, really wonderful time, and great engineers there. Thanks to KTOO. And without further ado, let's listen to this really interesting conversation from Marc, Keith, and me. All right, here we go. This is a podcast unlike any other. I think we're going to title this something like AK Ice Cream plus CA Technology. Ice cream and tech. So we've got Alaska ice cream, we've got Canadian tech, and that's what we're doing today on the 49SAF Pod. I'm joined by Marc Wheeler of Juneau's Coppa and Keith MacIntyre of Big Bear Software from Canada, specifically from Kelowna. So the first thing I've got for you guys...
No, he's from a different town. You get there.
Oh, he's from Penticton?
Penticton.
Penticton. So the first thing I've got for you guys is sell us your community. So let's start with you, Keith.
Penticton, it's a city of about 35,000 people. It's a funny spot in Canada where there's hot weather in the summer. We get over 100 degrees. There's 200 wineries within an hour of my house. We grow peaches. Winters are short. We do get a bit of winter. Ski hill 35 minutes away. Just a beautiful small town. I can be on my bike riding through vineyards within 5 minutes, trail running around mountains. And it's turning into a real hotbed for technology. So Kelowna is about an hour north, and that's turned into a $1.7 billion tech industry, over 700 tech companies, huge startup scene. It's a real destination place for Canadians, especially Vancouver. People are starting to realize, we don't really need to live in a big city anymore. So why don't we live somewhere that's a little bit more fun, a little more relaxed lifestyle, and copious amounts of delicious wine.
Oh, that sounds like fun. Marc, sell us Juneau.
We don't have wine, but we have really good gin.
We do. That's true.
It is
and
fantastic.
Great beer. We have one of the really major craft brewery, Alaskan Brewing, but then we have a couple real new breweries, and we have an amazing distillery, Malaga Distillery. But I think what really makes Juneau, it's beautiful and all that. Yeah, we have great mountains, great ocean activities, great outdoor recreation, ski hill 50 minutes away. So a lot of the stuff that you find in the Okanagan, maybe a little wetter, but I think the best thing about Juneau is the people. That we're a little isolated. You have to fly here or take a ferry. But the people here, it's just a really tight community, and we all take care of each other. So many of us don't have family here, but we have friends and tight networks, and if you fall down, there's people to pick you back up.
The next question that I've got for you guys is, you're both entrepreneurs. I've talked with Marc about this before, and actually our last podcast referenced Marc. So it's kind of cool that we're doing this. And we were just talking about Marc and how Marc sort of grew out, debatably, I don't know if you'd agree, you came out somewhat of Alaska's entrepreneurial ecosystem. Kinda. So my question is, what's your entrepreneurial process? Back to you, Mark, and then we're going to go to Keith.
My process, not quite sure. Trial and error, responding to.
You mean you don't write a 300-page business plan?
Well, we were part of a business plan competition, which was really helpful in kind of getting some of our thinking right. So that's been really helpful. But, since then, I just wanted to open an ice cream shop. That's what I wanted to do. But the landlord wanted a coffee shop. So I said, okay, we can do coffee too. But then we had all these people saying, oh, you got to do lunch. We want to have lunch because we work around here in the neighborhood. So then we started doing lunch items. And then we've just played around with our menu to really respond to the market. And I guess in a town like this size, I really probably couldn't make it on just ice cream. So sometimes you just have to pivot and try to find what works.
And what was it that I drank today at lunch?
That was a rhubarb seltzer. That's a thing we've been playing around with. So it's a lot of our ice cream includes local ingredients, and we make a lot of rhubarb sorbet, rhubarb sherbet, and we have a lot of rhubarb juice. So I've been adding that to water and carbonating it with no added sugar. And what'd you think?
I loved it. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was rhubarb, and I really thought it was great and tasty, and nice on the digestive tract. I'm a 43-year-old male. I like things that go down a little bit easy. Yeah. So, that was happy for me.
How would that go with Amalga gin? That tastes pretty good.
Yeah. Brandon does make a few rhubarb. He actually makes rhubarb gin, where he adds rhubarb juice to his distilled gin in place of the water, and it's pretty amazing.
Okay. So, are you going to develop a separate brand for that, do you think?
Yeah, I'm working on that. Been working on naming and some of the branding associated with that.
I saw the words AK Probiotics up on your board. Is that you, or is that somebody else?
No, that's a local kombucha company.
Okay.
Yeah, so we try to support each other in Juneau. We have a little entrepreneur community, nothing like Anchorage, but we try to support each other and collaborate on projects. And so we work with Barnacle, Devil's Club, Brewing, Amalga on different projects, and it's a lot of fun.
Keith, what's your entrepreneurial process?
It's a little bit wild.
Okay.
It's getting a little bit more structured. It's a lot based on, actually a lot of my, business was based on necessity in some ways. I started Big Bear Software 17 years ago. Early in my career, I was doing some pretty neat things, working on software for touchscreen voting systems for American elections. I always joke I was the first person to put a Wi-Fi card in a U.S. voting machine, and I kind of regret it. Ours was pretty secure, but... and I just wasn't enjoying working for the company I was working for. The values just weren't aligned, and my now 17-year-old son was born, and I couldn't go back to work for them. So I started my company, no money, no savings, no clients, lots of ideas, proceeded to almost go bankrupt, and then got really lucky with a client that I worked with for a better part of 14 years, building military tactical simulators and chemical and nuclear disaster simulators. Even a pandemic flu simulator for the Center for Disease Control way back in the swine flu days. And then, over the course of, different years, had lots of ups and downs, different attempts at growing my business. And this current iteration we're on, again, out of necessity, I had a really good defense contract, and they owed me $50,000, and I had to basically start from scratch. And so over the last 3.5 years, grew my business again to 20 people, and really interesting and large clients. But yeah, hopefully going forward, we're not going to rely on necessity for growth.
And why are you here in Juneau? It's not like it's next door.
No, it's really interesting. Your colleague Aaron Bacca, we were both at the Inventures Conference in Calgary, and both of us hiding from the crowds a little bit at the Bell Music Center, looking at some Canadian music history, and started talking. I knew nothing really about Alaska, and she didn't know much about the Okanagan, and some of the things that we do in the health industry kind of had some crossovers. And so Erin hooked me up with the Health Tie group with Jacqueline Summers out of Anchorage, and she had me present at one of her Health Tie conversations. And she said, we're having this innovation summit. And I'd set a goal last year of speaking more. And I was like, well, is there an opportunity for me to speak? If there is, I'll come. And here I am.
So how in the biscuits did the tech scene develop in Kelowna, British Columbia? That's not on the tip of everybody's tongue, but you're telling me you have a $1.67 billion tech industry. Where did it come from? Why does it exist?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for it, and some of it is a little bit of luck. There was a group of people, they developed gaming software called Club Penguin that grew really, really fast, and Disney bought them for $350 million and left all the staff there. And the owners of that stayed in the Okanagan, and they helped share their story, and now they're all launching new companies. We're also a little bit lucky, and there's some similarities with Alaska too. There's a lot of advantages to living there compared to some other places and lifestyle. So we have that going for us. But it just takes people. I think, I was launching my tech brew in Penticton, trying to get some cohesiveness in Penticton, and I asked the people, like, how did the Kelowna tech scene grow? And it really is fairly young, maybe 15 years, where it really started to gain some traction. And they just said, we just started with having beer once a month, and that's it. And it kind of grew into something more, and it's just getting people bumping into each other. But it's a really entrepreneurial city. Another thing it has had going for it, which wasn't really going, it's a tourist area, and so salaries in general were fairly depressed to other regions in the province, especially very disparate to cities like Vancouver. And it's sort of similar to me. I moved there to work for a software company, and I took a 40% pay cut from Calgary and thought this is going to be okay. It's going to be a slower lifestyle, better for my kids, and I realized it wasn't. And so, again, that spurred me into entrepreneurism. And I think that's what's happening a lot there is people, it's called the sunshine tax. We don't have to pay our employees well because you live in a great place. I don't believe in that. I think we can have competitive salaries to Calgary and Vancouver and live in a great place. So I think that entrepreneurial drive comes from that necessity feeling. But it is community, and we have a local government-funded accelerator. They have some really great programs with venture acceleration and access to global markets. But one of the things they really did well was build the community. So they have lots of events and people bumping into each other a lot.
What do you think, Mark?
I like beer.
What do you think we could take away from that?
Well, yeah, I think putting people together, and I think you have to get to some kind of critical mass, maybe. And how do you get there? So I mean, we've tried it, in Juneau, a few entrepreneur get-togethers, and trying to find a scene and a place that makes sense for everybody. It works with people's schedules. I don't think we really found that yet.
Yeah, and I guess it's part of its time too. Like if you've been on this journey for 15 years, Keith, Alaska's been on this journey multiple times. So our history is we had a science and technology foundation in the 1980s, and I'm going to speak broadly here because I don't know the dates, and the Alaskans are out there listening, and some of them know. The Alaska Science and Technology Foundation officially died in 1997 or thereabouts. And it was big, and it was $100 million, I think. But it was just financially, it was just a target, debatably. And then there was something called Alaska-infused, and it was, I think, partially government funded or entirely government funded. It expended its capital, and it went away. And then in 2012, along came the 49 SAF, and the challenge that we had was, these things that had been here before us, they weren't really around anymore. And so we keep, in this community, we've climbed this curve a couple times. And I think I have a lot of thoughts about what we do at 49 SAF, but one of the biggest ones is do not make someone else climb this curve again. Don't lose forward progress, So anyway.
So you're documenting? What are you doing?
Well, I think we're building for sustainability, quite honestly. I think that's the most important thing. I mean, there is one answer, and that's that, we were founded with $12.7 million. We've deployed, I think, $7.5 million. We got 5.1 plus to deploy, right? So we're kind of, we see the end in sight. we're well funded. We've got interest income. We've made some returns on our investments, so that's positive. But it's probably a short-sighted answer to say, yeah, okay, government program, you're done. Like that probably doesn't do our community any service. Mm-hmm. Probably doesn't do us any good. And so the people that I work with, my challenge to them is think sustainably and think for continued wins for our work. I wanted to ask you, Keith, what are the 3 most important components of that ecosystem in the Okanagan? So you've got this big entrepreneurial ecosystem, government accelerator, billion-dollar tech business. You've got multiple cities with people getting paid less than market wages because of sunshine taxes, but they love it. It's Canada, and they're building stuff, and it's cool, and they get to bicycle and drink wine. And I hear great things, by the way, about the Okanagan. But what are the 3 key pieces of that entrepreneurial infrastructure that you would say can't live without it? Most important.
3. Well, for sure, the community. It really is a tight community. And so half of my company is in Calgary. And I lived in Calgary for 12 years. And obviously, it should be a more cohesive tech community. It's a bigger city, but it's not. It's really fractured, and it's kind of all over the place. And maybe it's the advantage of having a smaller region, but there is that cohesive community. You know who the people are. You know you're going to bump into each other. And this message that we're all promoting of collaborative being collaboratively competitive. That's hard to say today. And that's something I've been promoting a long time. So, traditionally, we're competing on a similar startup idea. Let's not talk to each other. I promote businesses all the time. For me, if there's 15 more software consulting businesses like mine in Penticton, well, there's access to talent, and it's easier to attract people to the region. I would say that the accelerator is really a great asset to our community. Some of the programs we've done have been modeled in other cities across Canada. I think being a smaller center, we have a little bit more flexibility to try some different things. And 3, I think it really is just some of these successes that we've had in the past, and that ecosystem has maintained, and people didn't leave.
So community, acceleration, and consistency? Does that boil down to that?
Yeah.
Okay. Marc, hitting the ball toward you. What's your takeaway for Alaska's positives for its ecosystem? You got three good things? 3
Positive
important
things.
pieces of what makes Alaska's entrepreneurial ecosystem work?
Well, I think, we are a beautiful place to live. So there's that positive that, we have all these amazing outdoor activities and great communities to live in. But I don't know. I think it's the people. We do have people that are here that are tough, right? That can make it in a tough environment. But I think about Juneau, and I think a lot of our entrepreneurial success lately has been the millennials. We've had in the past a lot of brain drain from Juneau. Like kids grow up here, they go outside for college, and they stay outside and they don't come back. But lately we've had more success keeping people here, and a lot of these new businesses. I talked about Amalga and Devil's Club Brewing, and these places are. The millennials have come back and invested in the community. So I think that's a positive trend we're seeing.
So you've given me people and generation. Like you've given me Alaskans in general and a generational element, millennialism, as positives for Alaska's entrepreneurial ecosystem. Okay.
I see that the same in our region as well. Like it was traditionally young people left and they never came back because there wasn't enough fun things for young people to do. So I think that's changed, and probably just a function of technology too. It's easier to find things to do. Even when I moved to Penticton 10 years ago, it was hard to know what was going on. I thought the community was dead and tired, but there's actually a ton of things going on. It was just all word of mouth, but now with different ways to access those events like meetup.com and Eventbrite and these things, it makes the community grow a little bit faster. And what you said about, sorry, just to jump in, what you said about
talk amongst yourselves
about the tech companies and being competitive, and realistically every company is tech, and I think there's going to be a more comfort level with remote workers, and to kind of get out of the idea that you have to grow your entire company in one location. So when I started growing my company again, I thought, well, if I get all Penticton employees, great, but that's probably not practical. So I need to plan my company around people in Penticton, Kelowna, and Calgary, where my business connections were. And, I see some really successful companies, and, they got 500-600 people, but they're all in one location. And to me, it's and they're not comfortable with remote work. I think that getting that comfort level, and so you build your core team with people that you know and you trust, and you supplement that with people that are from elsewhere.
I guess I really like he's talking about collaboration too, and I've tried to do that more in the food scene here in Juneau. We have this kind of burgeoning little food scene with. And when I moved to Juneau, it was like you didn't go out to eat that much because you could always do better at home. But now we really have a real thriving food scene. And I've always approached it like the more we can do together, group purchasing or collaborating on projects. We've done some barista events. We've got all the baristas in town together. The more we can do that, the more we can build this culture of supporting each other. And, honestly, people aren't going to come to your restaurant every night of the week, right? People want diversity and people want variety. So if we can support each other, we all win. From my perspective, and maybe it's a little bit different from tech, but I think just this purely cutthroat entrepreneurialism doesn't really work.
We had that same thing in Penticton too, and again, I think similar sized cities, and the food is getting better. And I remember when one lunch spot opened up beside a coffee shop that a lot of people liked, and they said, "Oh, what's that going to do to that coffee shop? They shouldn't open up next door." And in my mind, I'm like, the more the better. Like, there's an unlimited supply of lunch spots that you can have in a city like Penticton. And I remember about 6 or 7 years ago, a brewery pizza place opened up called Bad Tattoo. And it was the first place in Penticton where people my age and demographic, you said, let's go for a beer. And they're like, yeah. Before that, it was all these tired places that had been around for 10 or 15 or more years. And from that, one of the other microbreweries moved and had built a really great community place, in 4 or 5, 6 different places that are, I would say, you wouldn't know you're not in a small town going to them. And they all collaborate together. Like, we have 8 microbreweries in a town of 35,000 people.
No, that's just good. That's just good policy.
Yeah, and we have some distilleries as well. And the food in Juneau, I've really enjoyed. I had some amazing king crab last night. The donuts at your shop this morning were amazing. Delicious coffee. A friend I'm here with, she said that was the best gluten-free muffin she ever had. She didn't believe that it was gluten-free, actually.
Yeah. I think, there's been a few write-ups about Juneau as a great food destination.
Wasn't there a Times thing or something?
Yeah.
Wasn't there something in the New York Times?
New York Times, I think, Bon Appetit, different, travel outlets have kind of discovered Juneau. But there's also this focus on localism too that we've been experimenting with at Juneau. We don't have that much because we don't have a lot of farms around, but so you have to get a little creative. But that's been fun to see. Some of my friends at Barnacle, they've been using local kelp to make all kind of products, and it's been fun to see them grow. And we actually made a kelp jelly ice cream with some of their kelp, and it was surprisingly good. So sometimes you got to just be a little flexible with your creativity.
Well, I think people are craving community now. Just how our society has developed, and the connectivity, and people, they're spending some more time in their houses. And I think, again, back to the Penticton example, before we had all these cool places to go, friends of mine, they would have these costume parties at the yacht club, and 200 people would show up, and they're all really interesting. And we're like, where are you the rest of the year? And it's probably similar in Juneau. There's tons of interesting people here, and they're just looking and craving for something different to do.
Pretty much. We're all 1 degree away from each other. Is that the scene in Kelowna too? I mean, and I'm sorry, the Okanagan. Is the Okanagan like you're in Penticton, but everybody knows the same person in Kelowna?
Pretty much, yeah. It's a pretty tight, small community, but you do end up in your little niches. And what I've been trying to spread the word with what we're doing in the tech community there, it needs spread beyond that, because we think everybody's connecting and collaborating, but then you go into other industries and they're not talking to each other at all. So we're actually trying to use the tech accelerator, because every company is tech, and how to bring wider and different industries together. Because again, that collaboration and knowledge you learn from other industries, that's what's worked well in my software company. Is something that's in defense is applicable to medical, is applicable to a tire store, and to try to diversify the types of people that are together.
So one more, I suppose I'll keep asking questions about the Okanagan. And one interesting thing that happened last year, just that so everybody knows, we are kind of in year 2 of our Alaska Angel Conference process. And are you guys in year 2 or 3?
Year 2 as well. Yeah.
So last year, from San Diego to Anchorage, the model of Seattle Angel Conference, which, by the way, it came out of Oregon originally, but it's been popularized, I think, in Seattle by a gentleman named John Seacrest, amazing entrepreneurial ecosystem builder. We'll try to connect with him on this podcast. They've done like 16 iterations of it, and a lot of VC funds and individual angel groups eventually spun out of that. But last year was like an export year for some reason. So Kelowna launched, or the Okanagan launched. I'm sorry, Anchorage launched, or Alaska. Because we are going to rotate it to communities every year. This year it's in Juneau.
Juneau's doing it, yeah.
Yeah, this year it's in Juneau. Last year it was in Anchorage. Next year, Fairbanks. And then San Diego did it too. And so like just wide range of, San Diego is debatably, you could argue it's like in the top 5 venture markets in the United States. Anchorage / Alaska, not in the top 5 venture markets in the United States. I don't know where the Okanagan is, but probably bigger. And it's interesting that we're all sort of saying, this is a good way to stimulate local investment now. So did have a question again about what have your takeaways been from the Angel Conference process in the Okanagan?
It's interesting, and I know when we started talking about it 2 or 3, well, I guess probably 3 years ago now. Time gets hard as you get older, I think. What was interesting is we realized there's a ton of capital in the Okanagan. It's a destination retirement place. There's billionaires buying wineries. Marcus Friend who sold Plenty of Fish for $600 million opened up a winery recently in West Kelowna. I realized there's all this capital there, but nobody knew how to invest. And when I was doing the Smart Cities Challenge work, I had 4 people offer me $200,000 and say, how can I get in? And I was like, whoa, okay, I'm happy to take your money, but that's not the way that you invest. And so I started learning more myself about the angel ecosystem and realized that we just didn't know how to do it yet then. So the Angel Conference has been a really good start for that. And I see similarities in Calgary as well. So I do a lot of talking with Calgary Economic Development. We're on a steering committee for their Life Sciences Innovation Hub. And similar to Alaska, Calgary is a very energy-dependent economy. They have just a huge amount of engineering talent and a huge amount of capital. And I was at the Inventures Conference last year, and I heard venture capitalists and investors say, well, there's not enough companies to invest in. And then I hear Calgary Economic Development saying, they don't know how to invest in other industries. And so I would say that's probably similar in Alaska. There's capital everywhere, and they would love to invest in local companies. They just don't have the comfort level to do it. So I think the Angel Conference is a great way to get that education component in there. I know a couple people who are involved in it from the startup side and from the investor side, and they're both learning a great deal from it.
Yeah, there's no shortage of capital in Alaska.
Is that right?
I don't think so. I think there's plenty of money in Alaska.
But keeping it here is a challenge, right? A lot of it goes south when people move back south.
Well, so we struggle with this as investors at the fund. You have a 33% chance, broadly speaking, of investing in a startup and it blowing up, returning nothing. Right. And so the reason why angel investors look for 10x plus on their investment is all that volatility. 33% return 0, 50% return less than your principal. And then theoretically, the above 50%, you sort of have a little bit of return principal plus some. And then there's something that's an outsized return that drives the portfolio. When we're talking about investing in the rest of what I call the rest of America, which isn't fair, we might want to say the rest of Canada too, that model struggles because the upside is somewhat constrained, right? You're not investing in the next Uber or Lyft or something that's going to necessarily IPO. And so I think that there's a group of people trying to figure out how we catalyze local capital for local investment, return that capital, and continue to recycle it. But the truth is, I think that there is money in Alaska and it's investing outside and it's easier to do and the profits are higher and that's normal and okay. We're here to do the work for investing in Alaska and we will.
I think a lot of it is trying to define what it is your region is. And we went through this. Chris Hively from Techstars came and did an evaluation of our community and, relating us to, where you are in the startup scale compared to Boulder. And it was really interesting. But for years, everyone was like, oh, we want to be the Silicon Valley or the Silicon Valley of the North. And just a strange coincidence, one of the finance people for Solium Capital, $1 billion exit in Calgary. I went to high school with my sister, well-connected Silicon Valley finance person, and he said Calgary as well. Like, you can't call yourself Silicon Valley. That's a very special thing that happened there. And so stop trying to model yourselves after that, and you're going to become billionaires off of the next Uber or Lyft. But Alaska has real problems that can be solved, that are important to the rest of the world, and you can focus on those purpose-driven things, things that get people passionate, and can make some money. That's a field for me, I think, where Alaska has a strength.
Yeah, I guess I think about this stuff, because we're kind of a mom and pop, right? And you think about small business development and job growth, and a lot of it is mom and pops, Not everybody can blow up and scale to infinity, And is that okay?
Mark, I went to the eShip Summit. The Kauffman Foundation puts on a summit every year for ecosystem builders. I'm kind of half ecosystem builder, half investor. And that very discussion was brought up by somebody, which is like, aren't I doing enough? Like, I'm paying my employees, I'm paying taxes, I employ 8 people. Isn't that enough? And I think the answer is abundantly yes. And I think that in most places, again, when you just take the venture model and port it to the rest of North America, inclusive. You take the venture model and you port it to the rest of North America, you need to think about how you're going to make modifications, because the truth is you're going to have people subscribing to join your entrepreneurial cohorts who want to build a nail salon, or they want to create a bicycle company and build their own bicycles, or their own, electric whale watching company. There's that company in Juneau. This guy's been after building an electric whale watching vessel for a long time. Seems like a good idea to me, but some of them have lower revenue potential than others. But the truth is, like, one of the rules, I think, of entrepreneurial ecosystems is we're all invited to the party. Mm-hmm. And you kind of don't get to say your thing. You get to build the business you want. You get to build Coppa, build the best Coppa you can. And then the other person gets to build the best, Alaskan brewing they can. But I know I hope to get a chance to talk to the Larsons the next time I'm here. But I doubt they set out to be the 17th largest microbrewery in the United States.
Yeah. They just want to brew beer.
Yeah, it's actually interesting you say that. I know the fan favorite at the Innovation Summit was the woman with the oysters. I'm forgetting what they were called, but
Salty Lady?
Salty Lady, I think.
Salty.
Yeah.
Salty. Feminine pronoun.
I'm terrible.
Salty
terrible.
lady, salty women, salty girl. I don't know.
I'm terrible with names, but it was a lifestyle business, and her revenue was very reasonable. $100,000 net profit, kind of thing. But that's not something that angels will typically invest in. And I always struggle a little bit where, we expect, we're going to invest in 10 companies and we expect only one of them to succeed. And, I always, and again, I'm not an angel investor, but, having some balance, especially in a smaller ecosystem, having some of those lifestyle type businesses that are profitable, they're not going to give you the huge returns, but they are going to give you something.
Well, I thought you said you get to build a business you want, but you got to be passionate about it, right? So,
and it's got to pay your bills.
Yeah, it's got to support your.
It can't just be your dream lemonade. I don't know.
But without passion, how do you keep it going, right? I mean, yeah, if you're not gonna, become billionaires and retire at 35, but it feeds your passion, feeds your soul, then yeah, maybe that's enough.
Yeah, and these non-traditional businesses may end up having the ability to grow. I think, again, we get caught up in the tech, and we can't help it. We have Silicon Valley in our minds when we're thinking of these billion-dollar exits, but realistically, that's it's a special region where that's going to happen.
Yeah, and I started out with ice cream and making ice cream, and I thought, oh man, I'm gonna go to scale making ice cream. But then reality sets in, right? And we're in Alaska. The nearest dairy is thousands of miles away. So, scaling up ice cream in a place like Juneau just doesn't make a lick of sense. So you have to think about what are your constraints and what can you do well in this place, and try to. And I was just so excited to see the guy talking about drone delivery of packages to the bush.
That was fantastic.
Really fitting the environment with a cutting edge solution. But that technology and that know-how could be exported somewhere else.
Yeah, and there was the other company called Dash, I think
That's
were.
the one,
and they have they're not drones. They're actually it's the same technology as precision-driven missiles, but they're using it to deliver packages. So the aircraft don't have to land.
Yeah, they're just going to drop and go.
And
they can hit a 3-meter target.
Here's your hand cream.
They can deliver eggs, they told me.
Well, and that's looking at what are the problems of Alaska. Like, one thing stuck out in his presentation is that 50% of produce goes to waste in Alaska because it's sitting and rotting. Whereas with that type of technology, it's getting there fresh. Like I saw a tray full of avocados at lunch yesterday, and I just saw people loading up on it. And if you
get a good avocado in Juneau, Alaska is tricky.
Yeah,
very tricky.
Yeah, I'll admit I was at Fred Meyer in Anchorage last week, and it wasn't Fred Meyer. So apologies to you, Fred Meyer. It was another large grocery store, and I touched a tomato. And it kind of burst apart when I touched it. So anyway.
You didn't buy that one.
All right. You guys do cool stuff. Tell me about the coolest thing you've done in the last year. Because you're working on cool stuff. And the cool thing is different. So let's start with Keith. Tell me your cool thing you've been doing in the last 12 months.
Oh, it's so hard to choose. I'm going to pick the newest thing, and it's very, very new. But I just took possession of a 4th floor of office building in West Kelowna, which is just across a bridge from Kelowna. And there's this mindset that crossing this bridge is a really big deal. But I timed it. It's only 8 minutes from downtown Kelowna. It's not very far, and we have free parking. But I'm opening it not just for my company. I'm opening it as a co-working style place, and I call it more shared professional workspace. And what I'm looking for is that collaborative environment of people that are working hard. It's a little different than co-working, where it's a little bit easier for a small business to have 2 to 5 people there. And one of the reasons I decided to do this was with the Smart Cities Challenge work that we did. We had a similar office space in Penticton, and it had land developers, it had architects, it had a branding person, a marketing consultant that does amazing things for a company out of Vancouver and Toronto, and just this really and a sculptor too. And this really diverse group of people, we got excited about something, and all our different varying talents came together, and it created this massive community initiative that changed, in my mind, the future of the Okanagan. And so this office space came up, and to me, it's kind of bridging the gap from Penticton and the South Okanagan to Kelowna and that side of the bridge. guess it remains to be seen how exciting it will be, because I just got the keys on February 1st.
I guess the biggest realization I came to in this last year was exit strategy. I got to go to a little business workshop and just think, like, I think we've been in this like startup mode and survival mode, and now we're about to hit 7 years. And I never really thought about exit and what that means for how we run our business. So just thinking about that has really changed my thinking about where we go next. So we're looking at opening our second permanent location, hopefully this summer. And that's in large part driven by this thinking about exit. So it's pretty hard to sell a food business, and nobody really buys restaurants, unless you have a liquor license. So I've just come to the realization we have to build our brand up. We have to be a really solid brand and really penetrate our market if we're going to try to sell this thing someday.
You keep bringing up the Smart Cities Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what that was?
It was a really unique federal government competition where they were offering a $50 million prize, 2 $10 millions, and a $5 million prize. And I usually shy away from government-funded things. They're not usually run very well, but this one kind of stuck out as something different. And it was run by Infrastructure Canada. And what they wanted was a community-driven initiative over the course of 4 to 5 months where you gathered data from the community and you came up with one sentence that was your community's greatest challenge. And how do you solve that using open data and connected technology? And what I liked about it was trying to flip the procurement on its head a little bit. Instead of getting government making the decisions, getting the community involved and finding out what was really important to the community. And it was just an amazing initiative. And I told the city, like, we're going to run as a grassroots initiative. We are involved, but we're going to drive the show. And we'd get engagement of we'd run a survey and we get 1,500 responses in 48 hours. Municipal government can't do that. They'll put a survey out of something I'm really interested in, and I have a hard time working up the energy to answer it. So for whatever reason, it worked really, really well. And we came across the theme of healthy communities. And so through that, and I should remember this statement, but it's not how my brain works. But I learned a lot about intelligent community design and how if you design your communities better, the citizens end up being healthier. And I flagged something really interesting and surprising is that we actually have a way higher instances of depression and anxiety in Penticton than other areas of British Columbia. And it's a great place to live. So you think, well, why is that? Like, it doesn't make sense. But then you look that we have some transportation problems. We have a very, very high seniors population. I think 27%. Our transit is difficult. And then, we didn't win the prize. And I had a theory that in the summer months, because it is so hot and so busy with the tourists, that certain segments of the population aren't getting out of their houses and doing the things that they normally do. And then we get very cloudy in the winter as well. So
yeah, right.
Yeah. No, we do. This feels like home.
I don't believe it for a second.
This feels like home. In the winter, in the summer, it's sunny the whole time. But yeah, it was just a really inspiring thing.
Okay, good stuff. Marc, question for you. How did Juneau become this tourist hub? If the Okanagan became a tech hub, I still don't. I guess it was a company exit helping drive that, really. How did Juneau get to where it is today?
Well, there's an interesting podcast you can listen to.
Yeah?
Called Cruise Town. And it was developed by folks here at KTOO. Okay. And as far as I can tell, there was Juneau was kind of a rundown place in the 70s and 80s. And it took, citizens making an effort to really beautify downtown Juneau and make it an attractive place for the cruise lines to come. And it was really a concerted effort to do so. But I think once we were discovered, there wasn't much we could do about it. It just kind of kept growing and growing. And, we have a lot of tours people can do here. So there's a lot of things to do when you reach Juneau that might not be in other destinations. So I think the community was ready to develop that as well. But I recommend listening. It's pretty fascinating, this podcast, Cruise Town.
Cruise Town, Butterfat, Cruise Town, 49 SAF Pod. And what are you going to call your podcast, Keith?
Oh, I don't know. We're working on that.
All right.
We'll call it the superorganism.
The superorganism. All right. So the final... Okay, so how about a final thought from each of you before we wrap it up and I ask my final question?
Final thought. I guess just want to thank you, Joe, for all you're doing in the 49th Street Fund, 49th State Fund.
Doesn't matter. We can call it anything.
But it's kind of been fun to see. I came from the nonprofit community before being an entrepreneur, and it's been fun to see all the things you folks are doing, others around the state to grow entrepreneurship. And I think the future is really bright in Alaska.
I've really enjoyed learning more about Alaska, and it's interesting to me seeing the crossovers between the regions I work in. Like I said, Calgary with their energy-driven economy, and then the Okanagan with a tourist-driven economy. There's similarities everywhere, and Alaska's a bit of a black hole, and it's sort of like actually Canada for most Americans. Like, we don't know what goes on up there, and we don't know what goes on in Alaska. So when I was putting out on my LinkedIn and social media that I was coming here, people are just fascinated to learn more. So I'm excited to bring back what I've learned about the fantastic things going on up here.
Well, look, it took 15 years plus for the Okanagan to do what it's doing. We've started in 2012, so 49 SAF is 8 years in. Of course, there's always been entrepreneurial efforts in Alaska, but you might say we have a ways to go. I just want to say things have really grown, and I've seen them grow, and I've seen companies grow, and I've seen funds grow, and I've seen investors grow, and startups grow. So stay positive out there, Alaska. My final question is, and I need honesty, give me your favorite cheesy music pop artist that you listen to that most people don't know you enjoy. Tell the truth, Marc Wheeler.
I like Twista.
Twista? Who's Twista?
He's a really fast rapper.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
I don't listen to cheesy pop.
You don't?
I do not.
I want to listen through your Spotify. All right, that's it. Joe Morrison, 49 SF Pod. Keith, Mark, thanks. Let's have some fun next year. Let's build some ice cream software or something. All right.
Fantastic.
See ya. Bye-bye.
I do have a podcast.
Okay, tell us about your podcast.
It's a bit dormant right now. I'm about to cut a new episode, but it's called Butterfat, and it's dedicated to making, eating, and reveling in ice cream. I've done a lot about the main ingredients, kind of taking like a deep dive in vanilla or chocolate, and then more recently, I was really inspired by the cookbook Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. So we've covered some of those elements and how they relate to ice cream.